Oh, who doesn't love a good villain? Well, I suppose any of their victims, I guess. Before we go on at all, you're gonna look at this list and be like, there's some pretty missing names here. Alright, how do I put this best? Yeah, we're doing a follow-up list, and Can's gonna be on it. Alright? Okay, right. With that in mind, I'm Sean Ferrick for TrekCulture, and here are 10 Star Trek villains who killed the most. Number 10, Lore. Data's maniacal identical brother Lore was designed with faulty programming that made him extremely unstable. When Dr. Soong was working on Lore at the Omicron Theta colony, he began displaying signs of malevolence and thoughts that he was better than humans. This led the other colonists to distrust the android, and they demanded that he deactivated. To get revenge on the colonists for rejecting him and wishing for his death, Lore lured a powerful space creature known as the crystalline entity to the colony, where it wiped out most of Omicron Theta's hundreds of inhabitants. Data, Noonien Soong, and Noonien's wife Juliana all survived the initial attack, though Juliana was severely wounded and needed to have her consciousness transferred into an android body. Though, later, in the episode Brothers, Data and Lore found Dr. Soong, who they both thought had died in the attack, and Lore killed him and stole his newly designed emotion chip because he still believed that the Doctor cared more about Data. Number 9. Kodos, the Executioner. Many aren't aware that Trek has its own Thanos-like villain. When Kirk and another Enterprise crewman, Kevin Riley, were younger, they lived on a colony on the planet Tarsus 4. In 2246, an exotic fungus caused a massive food shortage on the planet, and its 8,000 residents began starving. The governor of Tarsus 4 was a mad eugenicist named Kodos, who decided to murder half of the planet's population in order to feed the colonists that he considered most valuable. Kirk and Riley survived the massacre, but 4,000 were killed, including Riley's parents, and, according to a display in the USS Defiant on Inner Mirror Darkly Part 2, so were Hoshi and her family. Kodos was assumed dead, but really went into hiding under the alias Anton Caridian. His identity was exposed in the original series episode The Conscience of the King, when his daughter Lenore began murdering all of the eyewitnesses who could identify her father as Kodos in an attempt to protect him from his evil past. In an attempt to kill Kirk, Lenore accidentally killed Kodos. Number 8. Colonel Philip Green. Colonel Philip Green was first mentioned in the original series episode The Savage Curtain, when the Excalbians created a duplicate of him along with several other historical figures in order to test humanity's concepts of good and evil. Green was a key military leader in World War III, known for overseeing a brutal genocide. We learned more about his specific history in Star Trek Enterprise. In the episode In a Mirror Darkly Part 2, a display graphic revealed that he led a faction of eco-terrorists whose actions led to the deaths of around 37 million people. Then in Demons, we learned some specifics about Green's next massacre. After World War III, many humans were permanently poisoned with nuclear radiation. Green ordered the euthanasia of hundreds of thousands of these poisoned people in an attempt to prevent others from being infected. Green's actions were condemned by history at large, but he was a major inspiration to the leaders of the anti-alien terrorist group Terra Prime. Number 7. Emperor Georgiou. The Mirror Universe tyrant Emperor Georgiou went on to become pals with the Discovery crew after joining Section 31, then later traveling to the future with them, but we shouldn't forget that she was a ruthless murderer in her home universe. Her formal title was Her Most Imperial Majesty, Mother of the Fatherland, Overlord of Vulcan, Dominus of Kronos, Regina Andor, Philippa, Georgiou, Augustus, Laponius, Centaurius. She oversaw invasions of Vulcan, Kronos, Mintaka III, and wiped out the few remaining Telosians for using their illusions on her. Horrifically, she also regularly ate Kelpians. These examples are probably only a small sampling of her true death count. It truly is odd that she was allowed to roam Discovery at all after this, simply because she helped out a few times and because Burnham and Saru missed their old captain. Emperor Georgiou was not a good person. Her death count may even be one of the highest on this list. Number 6. Nomad. In 2002, in Trek history, Earth launched Nomad, a highly sophisticated artificially intelligent space probe with the mission to find new life. Unfortunately, in 2005, Nomad was hit by a meteoroid and lost contact with Earth. While aimlessly wandering through space, the probe eventually came into contact with the alien probe called Tanru. Somehow, the two units merged programming, which turned Nomad into a sentient being with a new directive: the destruction of anything it considered imperfect. With this new programming, Nomad went across the galaxy, destroying any life it encountered. In the original series episode The Changeling, the Enterprise rediscovered Nomad after it killed the 4 billion inhabitants of the Malurian system. But it's likely that this is only part of the probe's total death count. Kirk was able to convince the probe to self-destruct before it could destroy the Enterprise. The probe sought to kill anything that was imperfect, but Kirk pointed out that since it mistook him for its creator, Roy Kirk, Nomad itself must have been imperfect. Number 5. Kevin Uxbridge. The Dowd are one of the most powerful species we've seen in Trek. They are immortal beings that have the ability to travel through time and space, create powerful lifelike illusions, and kill with a simple thought. In 2281, a Dowd visited Earth to live as a human, and his new name became Kevin Uxbridge. Uxbridge lived a happy life as a human and eventually fell madly in love with a woman named Rashawn. The two married in 2313 and eventually moved to a colony on the planet of Rana 4. Kevin and Rashawn loved each other deeply, but Kevin never revealed his true identity to his wife. One tragic day, the Rana 4 colony was invaded by a species called the Husnock. Kevin could have killed them, but was prevented by the Dowd moral code. He tried desperately to trick them into leaving through his illusions, but nothing worked. The colony was destroyed by the Husnock, and his wife Rashawn was killed. With one momentary thought of vengeance, Kevin Uxbridge killed the entire Husnock race, ending the lives of an estimated 50 billion people. The Dowd are powerful, but they do not have the ability to reverse death. In his grief, Kevin recreated his home on the colony and his wife as illusions and pretended to live his old life. The Enterprise D encountered Kevin Uxbridge in the Next Generation episode The Survivors, but in the end, he was left on the planet to continue living his illusions. Number 4. Nero. Nero from the 2009 film Star Trek was a simple Romulan miner before the destruction of his homeworld turned him and his crew into some of the most destructive villains in Trek history. The star exploded in 2387 and destroyed the planet Romulus. Spock intended to consume the explosion with an artificial black hole, but he was too late to save Nero's home, which caused Nero to blame Spock for the disaster. Nero pursued Spock, but the two were pulled into the black hole, and Nero's ship was sent back in time to the year 2233, creating a new divergent timeline. He waited 25 years for Spock to arrive, eager to seek vengeance on the Vulcan. Nero wanted Spock to feel the pain that he felt, so when Spock emerged in the year 2258, Nero used the same black hole creating technology that was supposed to save his world to destroy the planet Vulcan, as Spock was forced to watch in horror. In this massacre, Nero wiped out nearly the entire Vulcan race, making Spock a member of an endangered species. Young Spock estimated that only 10,000 Vulcans survived, either by escaping the planet in time or simply being lucky enough to be off-world. Nero then intended to destroy Earth too, but was stopped by the Enterprise. Number 3. The Borg Collective. Since the Borg Collective exists as one single consciousness, we're going to include them on this list, but if you'd rather put the blame on the voice of the collective, the Borg Queen, then that's equally valid. The Borg assimilated billions of sentient creatures, but they were also ruthless killers when they deemed it necessary. The Borg destroyed 39 Starfleet ships during the Battle of Wolf 359. The death count of this fight was estimated at 11,000, including Sisko's wife, Jessica, and most of the crew of the USS Constance. The Borg have likely had similar engagements with every other species they invade, killing thousands in an effort to reach their home world to begin assimilation. Aside from that, they also killed those they considered unworthy of assimilation. So while the Borg do not usually kill their victims, that doesn't stop them from having one of the highest kill counts of any Trek villain. Besides, their usual threat, assimilation, would be considered a fate worse than death to most. Number 2. The Female Changeling. The Dominion War was one of the bloodiest conflicts the galaxy has ever known. Hundreds of worlds were rendered uninhabitable and hundreds of millions of lives were lost before the war ended. The blame lies with the Great Link and all of the other changelings that ruled over the Dominion and their unending conquest of the galaxy. However, one specific changeling, known simply as the Female Changeling, was tasked with carrying out the Dominion's actions in the Alpha Quadrant. It was her who led the deadliest battles of the war, and she even personally ordered the Jem'Hadar to exterminate the entire Cardassian population when the Cardassian citizens began rebelling against the Dominion in What You Leave Behind. Like most changelings, she believed that solid life was inherently evil and inferior. The war ended after Starfleet cured the changeling virus created by Section 31, saving the Female Changeling and her entire species in the process. At this point, she signed the Treaty of Bajor and was taken into custody, forever separated from the Great Link. Number 1. Anorax? Including this character on this list may be controversial, as it's debatable whether he killed billions or no one at all. In the 2170s, the Krenim Imperium was losing a war against a species called the Rilnar. In a desperate effort to win the war, a brilliant temporal scientist named Anorax developed a time weapon that could completely remove anything from a speck of dust to a planet, completely from history. After the weapon was fired, history would change as if the thing it fired on had never existed. He fired the weapon on the Rilnar homeworld and removed every trace of their species from time. The second time the weapon was used, Anorax accidentally removed his wife from existence, which led him to a 200-year-long crusade where the weapon was fired at target after target as Anorax desperately tried to restore his wife. Trillions of lives were completely undone. These events played out in the Voyager 2-part episode Year of Hell. However, at the end of the episode, the weapon itself was removed from history, and Anorax got to instead live a happy life with his wife, though presumably under the threat of imminent destruction from the Rilnar. Because of this, Anorax in the so-called Prime timeline didn't kill anyone, as far as we can tell, but there exists a hypothetical short-lived pocket timeline where he killed trillions, if you count being removed from history as being killed. That's a lot of caveats for our number 1 spot on this list, but time travel tends to complicate things. That is everything for our list today. Thank you so much for watching along. Thank you so much for going and checking out the original article by Marcia Fry. Thank you very much to Mel Braun for editing this video, and you are all awesome. Remember that you can catch us all over on Twitter at TrekCulture, and we are of course on Instagram at TrekCultureYT. Catch myself at Sean Ferrick. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast as well, which drops every Tuesday. Folks, you are wonderful. Until I see you again, until I talk to you again, make sure that you live long and prosper. Make sure that you look after yourself. Make sure that you lead life with kindness, and just generally hope you're okay. Thanks very much.